Hello, horror fans. It's me, Cassandra,
Kylie.
and
Mary.
and today we have a very special guest. If you have not seen his two previous episodes on our podcast, we have on Jamie McGuire, who is a really good friend of ours. We absolutely adore him, and if you have never seen him as Mr. Smiley and From, you are missing out because it is quite literally one of the scariest things I've seen. And this is coming from somebody who quite literally watches like 400 to 500 movies a year. Quite honestly. So, but Jamie, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks. Yourselves?
We're doing great. So we're super excited because we're about to talk about both House of Waxes. Mary just informed me before we got on that Vincent Price's House of Wax is actually a remake as well.
Yes, 1933 was The Mystery of the Wax Museum, which I have not seen.
I have not
I
seen
was
that
reading
either.
about that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I was like, what?
I did not know that either. Obviously, we're going to have to go watch that afterwards and report back for this episode. But we're excited because we're talking about both House of Wax movies and how different, how similar they are. This ties into, though, and is probably a great way to really bring in our September month, my birthday month, also. And Horrorcraft turns 3. So the three of us, I for some reason I had 2 fingers up. Guys, just throw me in the trash after we're done, okay?
Never.
But September is our, Jamie, you didn't know this, but September is actually our haunted house, like haunt month, where we are going to be talking about different haunted house movies, different things related to haunts, scare houses, and all the above. Obviously, I knew that this was going to be a good idea. Didn't realize how great both of these are examples of scary atmospheres. So we are super excited. So without further ado, we're going to get in the episode. Stay away from matches. Don't touch the wax figurines. And if they're giving you too long of a look, you might want to run away because it might not be wax underneath there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the music. Let's Okay, we're back. Yeah, we were all dancing around. If you ever want to know the details of our theme song, they are always down in the description below. You can go check them out, and it's fantastic. So, and thank you as always to Stickies by Sarah for our emblem. You'll see it all across this video. We are greatly appreciative of that. So, House of Wax. Obviously, this is a scary concept in general. And it has the delightful Vincent Price, as well as the newer version has a lot of people that we see in horror movies as well. But since this is kind of starting out our haunted house, scare house month, I kind of want to pose a question to everybody. What do you think makes a good haunted house or a good environment for a haunted house? So, Mary, I feel like I want to start with you because
I'm the extra one.
Yeah.
You don't even need good costumes. You really could just make anything. It's the atmosphere. And especially if you add in like eerie music, does better than sounds, I think. And I think also what I haven't seen in a lot of haunted houses I think would be really good is silence. Because that would be the scariest thing because you don't know what's coming and where it's at. That's what I think.
Maybe they do use that though in the Quiet Place haunted houses that they do for Halloween Horror Nights. We'd have to ask the Toxic Icon guys about that because they would know more about that.
Wait,
But-
they do like the movie The Quiet Place. They do like a haunted house like theme around.
Yeah,
that?
they do like a themed one. Yeah, I think they're supposed to have another one this year
Wow.
based on that.
I mean,
Wow.
yeah, but no.
Yeah,
Right.
That might
Another
be-
thing that gets me is when people I live in California, so we have Knott's Halloween Haunt. What really gets me is the sliders. When the people on the ground, gets me every time.
yeah. You're shout out to the Toxic Icon guys, but Yurdi, Nick showed us a video of Yurdi because both of them, Jamie, you wouldn't know this, but we have friends that run the Toxic Icon podcast and they're scare actors. The one, Nick, he plays a pig, but Yurdi, he's slimmer enough that he could like crawl and stuff. So he literally crawls on the ground underneath people and stuff like that. It was the great because when you meet them, they're so wonderful and nice, and then you see the recap video of them like freaking people out in line and stuff like. No,
Dude, Nick's pig noises get me every time. Every time.
it sounds like a real pig.
like a demon pig.
No,
Demon pig. I don't need that.
There is something super scary about pigs and like in horror, really.
yeah, maybe it's like the whole devil concept. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
Yeah.
pig's blood and stuff like that gets
It's also
brought up.
the pigman lore. I think the pigman lore is pretty traumatizing.
Yeah.
Very. Jamie, what do you think? What do you think makes a good haunted house, or has a good haunted environment?
Well, I kind of agree with Mary. I think all those factors play in. The environment, the decor, depending on who your hosts are for the haunted houses. I mean, it usually helps if they're scary to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
also, there also is that thing where it can just be silence in itself. And depending on what it is, I would say a number of factors plays in. And it kind of goes what theme you're going for. If you want it to be sort of eerie and suspenseful, just have like some device or something that just has the door open on its own for the first few steps they walk in. Make sure nothing or no one's around. Make sure they almost see nothing but darkness, or maybe just a trace amount of a staircase that almost seems to never end. Or if you want to kind of go for eyes always watching you. I mean, I was in Haunted Mansion back in November. I'll touch on that some other time, but it's just the eyes for the photos. They follow you everywhere. I know this is sort of cliche, but that normally plays into if you have the right lighting. If they have like a bunch of pictures on the walls and the eyes just follow you no matter where you go. And even if they almost interact with you.
Yeah, I
that'd
think
be a
that that's
factor as well.
yeah, I think that's a really good. So before I get into it, what do you think, Kylie?
Well, I'm not really big into haunted houses. I did kind of overcome a fear about 3 years ago. There's a it's called the RC Haunted Asylum down here.
Oh,
And it was small.
Asylums are next level.
They were all like crazy mental patients. And then at this certain part, they kind of locked people in, and it was like a stage, and it had all like the crazy like haunt actors who were like the crazy mental patients were like trying to auction people off, and like somebody got picked. Yeah, I thought that was great, but anything like
This
haunted,
sounds
like,
terrifying.
well, it was. The girl was freaking out, and I was just glad it wasn't me.
Kylie was like,
it's an escape room.
yeah. That does not.
It's like it's an escape room, it's an auction, and it's all in an asylum.
Oh
Right.
my gosh.
Well, another one is Anything in the Woods. There's another one around here called the Haunted Orchard, or like Terror in the Trees. I would love to go to it this year, but I am pregnant. I don't think haunted houses and being big and pregnant's not a good
Go in your
idea.
backyard.
I mean, yes, my backyard is kind of
Well,
it's terrifying at night. I'm not gonna lie.
And to just to bring context too, Kylie lives in a pretty active area for like history and certain things. Kylie lives right down the road from the Lucasville prison, which is like a
I
supermax
did
in
not
It
Ohio.
is very
Oh,
haunted.
wow.
And
It is very, very haunted at the
they
prison.
had a riot there years ago where it went down. Like they
Yeah,
were not
they
treating.
literally took over the prison for like a whole week. And across the street, you have schools, a pharmacy, really nice houses. It's kind of like a suburban, rural neighborhood. And I can't imagine, like, I've heard a lot of people talk about it and are just still very traumatized by it. But there's also some lore that behind the prison, there's this haunted cabin where this man was, and they have often wondered if this entity played a part in the riots and in the prison. But I've heard there's a lady who runs like a haunted group around here on Facebook, and she used to work at the prison. And she walked into a room and like the door shut. I don't know, some crazy stuff happened, but like I wanted to work at the prison, and because I was in school for criminal justice and human services, I decided not to. Crazy inmates I can deal with, but like a haunted prison.
Yeah, that's like a whole other level of like things.
I
going
do
on.
live in an area where like Bigfoot, UFOs there's a lot of activity. I have had some activity at my house, a little bit, which is a little bit terrifying. Nothing's happened in a while, but yeah, freaked me out.
No. That's all I'm going to say. No.
Yeah.
So I would definitely, I very much agree with Jamie. I have been on Haunted Mansion before. That is a good example of, it's way back in the day. I also have a soft spot for these kind of movies. To me, though, it's more quality versus quantity. Like, we watched The Changeling this time last year, and I forgot how good of a movie that is on its own. And that's a lot of like, there's not a ton of gore in that. That's just a lot of practical effects. That house is creepy.
Yeah, it's just creepy. The creep factor,
Yeah.
I think, is more scary than jump scares and things jumping out. It's more when it gives you that chill and that just creepy feeling. That's terrifying.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, and for me too, you know, we talk about this a lot, and I swear Gavin is not putting us up to this. I solemnly swear on the Holy Bible that Gavin does not put us up to this. But Gavin had a great idea, because if you've ever seen the inside footage other than watching the Scare House, like seeing YouTube videos and stuff of that in Windsor, Canada, that is a terrifying building to begin with. And the fact that Gavin was just like, you know what? Somebody could put some bodies in here and they would go unnoticed for a really long time. And that turned into the Scare House. That shows you right there, like, a good environment, because like for that to just come like naturally, and how that movie just evolves so perfectly with the background and everything like that. That's a perfect example of what good atmosphere does. And again, I solemnly swear Gavin is not putting us up to this. Like, it's just because of the fact that we love the Scare House so much. And if you've never seen that, you need to go watch it like right now. Like right now. It's on Tubi. Go watch it. But I just feel like a big thing is, if you have the right atmosphere, that is the perfect thing that lends into what's going to make a creepy environment. So
you don't need a lot of like expensive special effects and everything. No. The simplest things can be terrifying. It's like, think about it when it's midnight and you're walking around your house with no lights. Like, you got that chill factor, and you know you don't even need anything, because your mind also will make up things.
Yeah, I mean, and so the caveat to that obviously goes into our next, like, what we're going to be talking about, which is Vincent Price. And we kind of all need to agree, Vincent Price, a big reason why he's so captivating is his presence, his like acting and stuff like that is very natural. Like, he is just naturally spooky. He never really overdoes it. And there's just like a slickness to his performance when he's doing certain things where you never question certain things. Like, I don't know. I'm a Vincent Price fan to begin with. And after watching this movie, I have a little bit of rage for his character in this movie. I'm going to be fairly honest. So
That's supposed to happen.
yeah, I obviously. But then knowing Jamie and knowing that that's somebody you look up, I could see why you take inspiration for the characters you build from him, because Mr. Smiley is one of those characters. You never intended him to be like as scary as he is, but he's terrifying. Like we go around like a cult and make people watch from.
Yeah, we do.
Truly, we do.
I got my in-laws are obsessed with it now. I've got friends obsessed with it. So
now we're talking about showing people episodes of GhoulieCon like beforehand. Like we're trying to get Joanna into it and stuff like that. But I mean, like the reason I think that works is because you're just terrifying. I mean that in the nicest way possible.
Oh no, I know. I hear it all the time from everyone. So.
But I mean, like, I see why that would be your inspiration, right? Because Vincent Price is a very suave character. But when he's terrifying on an intellectual level that you're just not prepared for. I feel like when you see him as a villain in some of these movies, you know he's the villain, but your mind almost wants to refute that. Like, no, it can't be him. Like,
or I'm rooting for him either way. So
I was the same. I have issues though, so
yeah, it's like,
I mean,
I don't care. I'm still rooting for him. So
yeah, he totally had every reason to be the way he was in the 1953 House of Wax. I mean, come on, the guy was like burning up all of his like life's work.
Yeah, I mean,
I would want revenge.
Yeah,
left him for dead. I mean, come on, who wouldn't be a little angry about that? Too?
Yeah, I mean, he's a little bit more justified in this movie than we'll say the characters, the villains are, in the 2000s remake. But I would say the thing that I think people don't give Vincent Price a lot of credit for is Vincent Price, in a lot of different ways, opened up the door for women in horror. He was a very big advocate for women in horror. You see that with like different things that he did with Elvira before he passed away. Like how they had the comic with him now with Elvira and stuff like that. But he kind of became a horror icon, and he opened up the window for more horror icons. And you see that women kind of walking through that door. You know, he advocated for women in horror a lot when he was alive. And because of him, you can see the ripple effects with women horror hostess. I mean, Elvira's the biggest one, let's be honest, but there are tons of others locally, nationally. Like he's the reason we're sitting here doing this podcast right now. Like, I mean, he really opened up the door for a lot of people when it came to horror. And I don't
have that in my notes. Like, great job, Cassandra, bringing that up. I have my notes. A lot of his movies had strong women leads.
Yes.
That's what was really cool. And I think, because I was introduced to Vincent Price as a young girl because my dad loved classic horror, like House of Wax. I saw probably too young, but it just made you feel, because there's that classic time period we know where there's the romances, the dramas, and all that. And then there wasn't that much horror that got mixed in with all that until Vincent Price kind of came onto the scene. I feel like he was a big part of shaping the way horror evolves, and even until till he passed away.
Yeah,
he was in stuff till forever. That was him.
Yeah, most definitely. And you know what's funny is I was introduced to Vincent Price because of Scooby-Doo. Because Vincent Price does the Ghoul School with Scooby-Doo, and they had that whole thing. And he was like I know we weren't supposed to like his character in Scooby-Doo, but for some reason, I kind of was like, you know what, he's pretty cool. So then I watched. Yes. but like to me that kind of introduced. But the thing with his films is they're not very gory, right? We're talking about a time period where horror just was kind of in that in between. Like we went from having like the Universal monsters and having that push where everyone identified that to like that lull, that like Vincent Price movies and Hammer films and everything. They were the ones that kind of kept the backbone of horror going until we reached that like 70s period where we start getting like Halloween and Texas Chainsaw.
70s went off.
Yeah. But truly, like, they were the reason why horror thrived for a while. And a big part of that is their performances, because those movies aren't overtly scary. However, it's the performance of the actors in that movie that kind of made people believe into it. You know, you kind of bought this idea that Vincent Price was kind of like the Mr. Rogers of horror almost. I'm just going to say that. Like, you know what I mean? Like he was, yeah.
I think a few more people would be a little freaked out if they said, "Hello, neighbor," from Vincent Price as opposed to Rogers.
I mean, I'll be honest.
He just comes out like on a nighttime show. He's like sitting in a rocking chair reading like a script. It's like, "Hello, neighbor."
I mean,
I'm here for it.
I was about to say, in our block of the woods, if Vincent Price came to my door and was like, had a plate of cookies and wanted to tell me a scary story, I'd be like, man, I'm waiting for you. Come sit down. Like, let's do this.
When
Like,
you were talking about that, Cassandra, just now, I was thinking, do you think he really started the whole you kind of root for the villain a little bit and you don't want to believe that they're the villain?
Yeah.
I get that. You really, even though you clearly see, like House on Haunted Hill, he is a villain. You clearly see, but you're like, no, I don't want to.
I think, okay, so do I think he started that? No, because obviously, clearly, like we had Lugosi and
yeah. I mean,
Karloff before that.
But
I definitely think he became, because technically with Karloff and Lugosi and a lot of the Universal monsters, it was the characters that we were kind of rooting for. Vincent Price as a character in horror, he kind of did bring that idea of what we consider morally gray now, because yes, in a lot of movies, he's a bad character, but you understand his motives in a lot of them. You can see a lot of yourself in him. Like we were just talking about in this movie that we're about to go into. He was existing perfectly fine until that person came in his place and mess things up. And then you can understand why he went on this trajectory path. Does that make it right? No. But you sympathize with him.
Yeah.
You do see a heroic side in him. You see that. So I think it's something that definitely thrived with him, definitely became a different level. And you see a lot of that now. Because let's take From, for instance. Jamie is Mr. Smiley and From. We don't want to like those creatures, but somehow we're rooting for Jamie. Like, we know that he's killing people, like, very, like, crazily, by the way. That whole bus scene kind of traumatized me deeply for a minute. I had to, you know.
That was awesome.
I had to go.
Doing it,
but in the best way possible. But we also kind of rooted for him because we kind of saw him as, like, maybe this character that didn't want to be doing this and kind of has to do this. Like, we still haven't really devolved into that whole mystery yet. I mean, maybe we're going to get a little further this season. Who knows? I'm kind of traumatized, if we're going to be honest. We'll circle back to that in a minute. But I just think Vincent Price, and I also think he kept horror alive for a very big period of time until horror started booming with, like, your Wes Cravens, your Tobe Hoopers, your
John Carpenter's.
Yeah, you know, all of the stories, John Carpenter, you know what I mean? And you get that boom in the 80s and then, you know, Scream, and then all the ways that we've gone since then. I don't think if it was for people like Vincent Price and like the Hammer films, I think horror would have fizzled out that whole entire period. Like,
Absolutely.
I don't think we get enough recognition.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, truly, because think about it. When you think about a terrifying Dracula, you instantly think Christopher Lee. Like, you think of Christopher Lee as the, imposing Dracula in the Hammer films, and he's scary. You think seductive. You think either, Francis Ford Coppola's version, or you think Lugosi. Obviously there are different shades of that, but you think of horror, you think of somebody like a big figure in horror, your mind immediately goes to Vincent Price, because he kind of built everything up before all of us really had a chance to grasp at it and keep moving forward. So I think that that's a great thing to bring up. So I'm excited to do this because I do know there aren't a lot of people that talk about Vincent Price. We kind of got lost about Vincent Price, in the last.
You gotta respect the classic horror. And as I was rewatching this, I was like, oh, I forgot how dramatic horror was back then. It was like the music and everything's a shock and the overreactions. I'm like, this is a great atmosphere. I love it. It's great. I think we kind of lost some of that.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm pro now horror, but I love the classics too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have lost a piece of that, and like this movie is way better than you expect it to be for something that's 1952, 1953.
It wasn't a typical 50s movie either. That's not what you think of when you think of the 50s.
No, you do not. So we're going to go ahead and talk about House of Wax. We're going to very briefly synopsize it. If you haven't seen it, it's not currently streaming on anywhere. You find this a lot with horror classics like this. However, it is available for purchase and for rent on like Vudu, Fandango at Home, all of those. And it's pretty affordable. I know I bought it and I was like, you know what? It's worth the money. So it's definitely a lot of times it's normally like $5 to buy it. So I'd highly just recommend buying it. You'll want to watch it over and over again. But House of Wax is a revenge story at its core. It's Vincent Price's character. His name is Jared. He has a waxwork that he does beautiful sculptures of. He's very proud of, especially his Marie Antoinette, which he should be because they are very lifelike. And he just wants to exist and do his wax figures, and his business partner wants to make money. So he gets an investor. The investor is like, hey, I'm interested in this, but I need to, go and take care of some things in Egypt. We'll come back. And his business partner doesn't like that answer. So in the greediest fashion, he burns down the waxwork to collect the insurance money and takes Vincent Price out in the process. At least he thinks he does. Then we cut to where the business partner is alive and well. He's talking about his friend being dead, and the business partner bites the dust. And we find out that Jared has made it out. He started a new waxwork, and originally he didn't want to do the more macabre. He wanted to just do his artistic pieces and stuff like that. And he, because of this accident, is no longer interested in that. He is interested in doing a House of Horror section, and gets a lot of people involved in a way. And we find out he looks very much like himself. We find out that is just a facade. When that wax mask breaks off of his face and you see that still to this day shocks the hell out of me.
Oh yeah, I was so shocked.
Yeah, I was like,
you know what's coming, but you forget. Or
yes,
yeah, it's a surprise after surprise. But the part that I remember got me when I was younger was when he stood up.
Oh my! When he does, after like, because you fully believe during that film, like you're like, I watched him try to like struggle out of there and everything. I fully believe that he was having issues. Like you buy into that. So when he stands up, you're like
her. You're like, what?
Oh, those displays too. I will tell you, out of any wax museum that I have seen, they are like, and I know that they probably were like people that just stood there and stuff like that. Like maybe that was
if
probably
they are good for them.
Yeah,
I
but
could not stay still. That ADHD would be like, nope.
but I would definitely say that to me was the creepiest part, right? Because those look more real life than the other movie, right? That we're about to talk about. The other,
Well,
but
the other one had different vibes too.
I mean, they have very different vibes, and they're both great in their own right. But
it's interesting. The older one had better, not graphics, but I guess presentation than you would think of the newer one, which, you know, there's so much more technology and things that are grasped, but it goes to, I love the older monster movies because I love that everyone had to make everything. And I think we've really lost that in a lot of ways. And I think but at the same time, we also don't have people in like, what is it, the creature of the Black Lagoon stuck in that outfit for hours.
I mean, there is a art form to that we have kind of lost because a lot of those were big productions. I want to think about this in relative terms. You know, Jamie brought up Haunted Mansion. You know, that to me is another one of those. Like that ride was very much created with this idea of doing and they for years go through and do the refurbishments. I mean, we see the overlay that they do for the holidays, that's Jack Skellington and stuff like that, but that's meticulous. Same way with like before it became forget what it is now, but it was MGM Adventure at the time when I went, and they had the Great Movie Ride. That was like it's like their MGM park that I think now is like I'll have to figure out what it is now, but it's like where Star Wars Land and stuff is, and Magic Kingdom. I'll look it up. But they had the Great Movie Ride. That was like the Chinese theater, which they actually have the Mickey Mouse ride in now. But that was the Great Movie Ride where you rode through the movies, and they had like Alien, a scene from Alien, Indiana Jones. They had the Casablanca.
What?
Yeah,
I've never heard of this because, you know, I'm on the other side. I'm in California, so I know Disneyland, Universal Studios, Knott's Berry Farm.
I've been to both. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, they stopped doing they stopped doing the Magic movie, the Great Movie Ride, I think like before the pandemic, if I'm not mistaken.
That's too bad because from your description, it sounds really
Hollywood
cool.
Studios, that's what it is now. Before it was MGM, like.
And where's this at?
This is the one in Florida.
Florida, okay.
In Hollywood Studios now, they still have the Chinese theater facade, but it's Mickey and Minnie's like Great Railroad Ride or whatever. It's a trackless ride.
Yes.
Before that,
I actually went there in November. I remember it.
Yeah. So before it was that, it was the Great Movie Ride, and they had sections of different movies. So you went through like Aliens. You went through. They had Wizard of Oz. They had like a mummy area. They had Indiana Jones. Like they had a Western town. Like it was a 20-minute ride, and your thing literally got jacked. Like you literally got. Like they had a Western character that literally jacked your ride and like took you guys through sections. I just more specifically remember the alien part because I love aliens, and my mother could not handle going through that.
Your mom went on that?
I made her go through. Yes. So I will put.
This story is funny.
I will put down below in the description a video. They have a video, I think, still on YouTube of somebody that went through like the last day, and they even include a part where they went on when they turned like the lights on for like the last riders so they could walk through and actually like take a look at the sets and stuff. But they had like a Gone with the Wind section where you see like Scarlet on top of the, you know, where she's like, I promise, you know, at the end of the movie that I'm gonna and stuff. But it was all these great movie scenes. But that was a very costly ride. And that was probably one of the last ones that you'll see that had like a lot of that practicability. Same way with Haunted Mansion. That is a very expensive ride. So you got to think, if that's rides that we're talking about, movie sets, that's why a lot we're going more into AI and digital and stuff like that. And that's creeping into rides as well. So I just think we've kind of lost that. Like, think about back in the day when Wizard of Oz happened, like the amount of people that it took to make Wizard of Oz and like costuming and everything like that. You don't really get that anymore. I mean, they probably did that now on the Wicked movie because you kind of have to. The musicals are kind of the last frontier where you really have to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going to do something that's like beloved on Broadway and has that production value, you're going to have to do it on this. So, but I mean, like, even the cue, like the guy that's doing the yo-yo bit for like a good part of this movie, I fucking love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me was just like, that was like Deadpool before Deadpool. You know how Deadpool like does the winks and stuff to the, like, he kind of was hamming it up for us in the audience. And it was
Right.
kind of a nod of that. But like even the theater facade and stuff, you don't see theaters like that anymore. You don't really get your historic areas and things like that. So I think that's a big reason why this movie is very splashy. And let's be honest, up until the end with Sue Allen and him trying to make her a wax figure, we were 100% on Vincent Price's side, because you come in my backyard, like you mess with my stuff, and then you're going to try to
think the Black Lagoon need to like get together and create a support group.
I mean, they were around the same time, so I guess they could, you know.
I feel like this movie is the epitome of fuck around and find out.
Exactly. Yeah. Very true. Very true. I mean, Jamie, what for you made this a special? Because you have always really loved Vincent Price. I know we've talked about that, different things. What is it that always made you gravitate towards Vincent Price movies?
Just it's kind of hard to pinpoint just one thing. It's his presence, his voice, the characters he always plays. You can't not root for the guy at all times. And yes, House of Wax, he did become a villain, but part of me, right up until the end, is just okay. I'm on his side, and he's just getting even now. So
yeah. I feel like up until he decided to turn Sue Allen into Marie Antoinette, we were all on his side. We were like, we get why you did this. The people involved, even with, you know, her friend, because her friend was also the kind of the reason why the investor decided to torch the place, because, you know, they were going to run off and have a vacation together. Kind of understand all of that. But when it gets to her, you're like, whoa, pump the brakes, guy. You could really recreate the Marie Antoinette that you already did. You don't have to use a real person.
Yeah, you don't have to use a real person.
Unnecessary.
It's unnecessary. Like, I think if he just would have been straight with her and not been so creepy, I would like to think if somebody had leveled with me about that, I'd be like, well, you know what? He has a hobby. You're fine. We can make this work.
He has a hobby.
Yeah.
right up until the end, everyone else, it's okay. They won't be missed. So
Yeah.
It's fine. They won't be missed.
let's see, criminal guy that betrayed him. Okay, now you're starting to cross dangerous territory, buddy. Okay, leave her be. So.
I mean, in retrospect, there is a fantastic 80s movie that I will drop the link in the description of this that's called Waxwork. That is about a wax museum. That is fantastic.
I forgot about that when I was doing my research on this.
That's kind of got the vibes of both of this that I think is great. But Vincent Price was taking people that obviously wouldn't be missed, that were like really not great people. Waxwork, they take whoever they want because they're trying to get their soul count, and, you know, things happen. And the people get snatched up, and just watch it. Just watch it. It's crazy. But you kind of think, okay, up until he crosses that line, you're with him because you're like, you know, from what they're describing from the one assistant district attorney or whatever, like, it seemed like he wasn't the greatest guy. Like, he might have been taking bribes or something like that. Like, they kind of imply that he's the reason why, you know, the investor gets the money is because they like helped him, along in the process. So like you get the 3 people that he murdered. You even get the fact that he breaks he takes along the one guy from Sing Sing that's the artist and stuff like that. You get that, right? Because you're like, okay, well, he has a hobby, and at least this way it's keeping him from being like violent off the street.
I love that you think he has a hobby.
He does. I mean, would you rather somebody play video games for 24 hours a day or sculpt and build like full wax figures? I mean, I'm
in this case, video games.
I mean,
I could have been like Ed Gein and making nipple belts.
Yeah,
true. I mean, but I mean, he has hobbies. Okay, they didn't get violent until later on in the movie. That's all I'm saying. So we kind of have to sympathize with him. Plus, I mean, like Vincent Price has a very soothing voice, so I feel like I could forgive a lot of that because like he would calm me down with his voice. Like I would be like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Like, yes, it's murder, but you explained it to me in a way that kind of felt like a little bit like a lullaby, so I'm okay with that.
So even when he tells Sue Allen that he's going to make her like an actual model from the wax, at one point it's very calming, but at the same time it's almost in a calming voice. I'm going to kill you by immortalizing you in wax.
Yeah, that's the part that gets me. It's like, okay, you couldn't have just asked her to pose. Like you already were doing that. Like
I know he's to work more. You have pupils, like she can just stand for you, really.
Right. Like I mean, the other people were fine.
Real still for you.
Yeah, I just think his humanity was that far gone because of his rage and betrayal and revenge he felt. It's like he forgot he's a person.
Yeah, and you kind of could forgive that more than the other 2 people that we're about to talk about. I mean, well, the one specifically, but you kind of could forgive that a little bit more because if you did have something like you could see in the beginning that he took a lot of pride in what he did, and that was very much like his lifeblood, and it got taken away from him in a really violent rage. Like you see him protecting those wax figures because they mean a lot to him. And when they're
that's like with any artist and like anybody's art, their art, like
that's your
there's
soul,
a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
I mean, literally, his pride, his future, and his talent went up in flames.
Yeah, like I
mean, wouldn't be mad.
Yeah,
I mean, and the reasoning behind it is just so sad because it's for money.
Yeah. And not that it would have like that very, very truly that investor was interested. Like he's the one who invested later on. So it was like that
people they don't have patience.
Yeah, and it was like if he would have waited, that would have been a whole different.
They might have even made more.
Yeah, like truly
because it being an investment that kept giving.
Yeah, truly, and it was more of an artistic journey. So that kind of leads into the 2000s version of House of Wax, which this version of House of Wax is obviously very different. The Vincent Price one, it's a very different movie. It's a revenge movie. This version of House of Wax is a very different movie as well.
It's just straight up horror.
It's straight up horror, but there are a lot of elements from from Vincent Price's version that kind of leans into this, but takes it a whole different, terrifying direction. So I remember seeing this a couple years after it came out, like probably at a sleepover. And I know a lot of people just didn't like it. But to me, it was just always really creepy, like the environment and like, it's just a different vibe, right? There's just this like splashy, punchy, it takes all the best elements of Vincent Price's version with like the the art behind everything in the town and the environment and stuff, but makes it even more horrifying, like amps up like the different elements in only the way that I think they could, doing a different version. But they're 2 separate, in my opinion, stories. Because
they're just kind of based off each other. Like,
yeah,
the new one's based off the old one. I was trying to look up. I was like, it said 2005. This movie was because
Yeah.
I saw it in theater, and I was like, I graduated high school 2006. I'm like, did I see it after I graduated? No, I was still a junior. I just remember being terrified.
Yeah,
I remember on MTV they had a show about like making it.
Yeah,
I remember watching that and being so excited for it to come out. And this has always been one of my favorite movies, to be honest.
I feel like it got hit on a
Surprisingly
lot.
good.
Yeah, I feel like it got hit on a lot because Paris Hilton was involved. But Paris Hilton, if you look at the
She did a great job.
She was really fun about it because like she even talks about like holding up like her dead head and stuff like that, in different parts of it, and like she was really excited to be in this movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like people listen, I'm going to say this from forever on now because we had to go through the trauma for you. It could have been Bermuda Tentacles, okay?
There she goes.
Yeah, Jamie, don't watch Bermuda Tentacles.
Yeah,
No.
Jamie, don't. We
watched
care
it
about
for
you.
Okay.
We care about you as a friend. There's a movie that was on Sci-Fi called Bermuda Tentacles. We decided it would be a good idea to watch it because Linda Hamilton was in it. It was not a good idea.
Jamie Kennedy's in it too.
Yeah, Jamie Kennedy. There were a bunch of people. Maya.
Yeah, Maya was in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. There are very few movies I have ever come on this channel saying that I just can't stand behind. That's probably the worst
Same
offender.
here. Even the worst B movies, I try and find something good, and I can enjoy it because I'm not a horror snob. I can really appreciate an indie film too.
Yeah,
I remember when I very first got into horror and like just watching all the different kinds of horror movies, right? Like you have to get through the crappy ones in order to get to the good ones. Like it's a whole experience.
And even the crappy ones can be good because look at what happened to Killer Clowns. Like Killer Clowns was a flop when they first did that. And look how that's become such a cult classic after it. I mean, and that was artistry too, because the brothers behind that, they made all of those costumes. Like there were stunt people that were in those costumes. And, you have John Massari who did the soundtrack. And, you could go back and listen to the episode he did for us where he talks about it. But, like, there were multiple people that tried to be the composer for it. Like, they did an open call, and he just had a different vision. But you have all these people who really loved this film, believed in it, took a swing at it. It didn't happen at first. And look at it years later. Like it has collections at Spirit Halloween. It's had Halloween Horror Nights, scare zones, a haunted house. Now they have the video game. They're talking about having a series. Like just because something doesn't take off in the moment. I mean, look at what we're talking about right now, House of Wax. That was kind of not a commercial success. But a lot of people
do good, but like it has turned into a cult classic of its own.
It
like
really
Terrifier.
Yes, exactly like Terrifier.
See, the fans do it. It's the fans.
Yes. Well, and let's really get into this House of Wax. So this version of House of Wax is completely different. It centers on a group of friends. We have one person in particular where she is in a transition period of her life. She has got an internship. She is going to move from her small city to New York for it. And she's trying to kind of convince her boyfriend. They're going on this big trip to go see this big football game. And they take a wrong detour. They get stuck out in the middle of the night. They decide to stop and camp. And they pick the worst possible place, which is this place that is outlying from the town that all of this is going to take place. So they stay there overnight. Some weird things happen. The next morning, her boyfriend's car, which, by the way, I take personal offense to the fact that Chad Michael Murray was like dogging on Jared Padalecki's car in this because his car was fucking beautiful. Okay. It was a vintage car.
That's what you got from it.
It kind of hurt my.
He was the evil bad twin. I mean, come on. Like he had to hate on his twin sister's boyfriend's car.
Yeah, I felt like we could have
done a duty.
I mean, we could have. I feel like
he had a duty. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he did, but I feel like we could have toned it down a little bit because his friend's car that was a little bit out of pocket, okay? Versus the older one, I would have taken that any day. So it's Nick and Carly. They are the twins. And we find out that there is, a good twin, bad twin kind of persona between them. So her boyfriend gets up, finds out Wade, because they make fun of his name, Wade. They're like, why is your name Wade? And I'm like, why are your guys' names Nick and Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to make a joke with it to make it make sense? Or are you just like, why is your name what it is? Like, it didn't make sense.
But
we have oh my god,
we have a cast of like really big names at the time. So like Jared Padalecki is in this. Alicia Kubert is Sam. Nick is played by Chad Michael Murray. Paris Hilton, obviously. But
what was his name? He played in Cousin Skeeter. I loved him in that show.
Oh my gosh, memory unlock. I forgot about that
show. My Cousin Skeeter on Nickelodeon. Yeah. He was in that. I thought I put it in.
Well, I know the guy, the friend that's kind of Dalton, that's John Abrams, and he is the one that was like in Scary Movie. He was in a bunch of different ones. There were a lot of people that were really like big and did a lot of horror at the time as well. So
I love this period of horror. It's from 2000 to 2010, a little bit in the mid there. I love it. It was a lot of copycat, but it was like, you're deserted, or there's a killer, or it's
that was the year of a lot of
stereotypes, but they were so much fun.
Yeah, like I agree with Kylie. Like, one of the ones that's like big for our neck of the woods, that's actually between Kylie and I both, is Wrong Turn. I was
thinking about that. I was watching it the other day, and I was like, "Is this thing them?" Like,
yeah, it's in Hocking Hills.
Yeah,
and it's from both of the newer one and the older one was filmed in our neck of the woods.
Wrong Turn, man, that traumatized me because I ended up going on a road trip with my family, and I was like, one moment my dad was like, "Let's pull over." I'm like, "Let's not."
I will say
they have a fair in Portsmouth. That's like the next like big kind of, I guess, whatever town over. The first year living down here, there was literally a family that was inbred, and you could tell by their facial features. And I was just like, where did I move to?
Oh no.
No. Well, I mean, like I'm I'm a half hour away from Kentucky, and I'm 45 minutes away from West Virginia. And where I live in Lucasville is very rural.
Very, very.
There's certain parts.
You live in the holler.
I do live in a holler. That you just don't go to unannounced.
Yeah.
And like, there's people that really do like live off the grid. I mean, when I was doing Instacart and Uber Eats and all of that, I went to so many different crazy rural places that I did not have service, and it just blew my mind. Like, it's 2024. Like,
that's literally why we have each other's locations, by the way.
Yeah,
because of Kylie going up to haunted doll houses.
Yeah, there's this like house that like had a bunch of old dolls in the front of it, and I was just like, "What?"
And it's abandoned.
Kylie's TikTok.
Yeah,
it's on TikTok. Yeah, but I still have yet to get the full story on that house.
Talk to
but
the neighbors about it. When she told us that she talked to the neighbors, me and Cass were like, "We need your location 24/7."
How are you gonna find stuff out without poking around, asking some questions?
But listen, that ties into this movie, because then what happens is the other friends go off and try to still make this game, and Sam and her boyfriend are looking for a belt for his car, and they encounter Bo, and they kind of this would have been one of those good ideas to have their location, because like you think your friends are missing, you might want to check their location. Like, just
I wouldn't have left my friends. I don't care about a football game. I wouldn't have left my friends like that.
You didn't trust a Bo.
Yeah.
And in that time period of horror, if there's named Bo, oh, okay.
Not only that, I'm going to be honest. you didn't hear, I understand that they had like the tape playing for the funeral. You didn't really hear a lot of noise, right? Other than that, wouldn't that have been your first sign? Like,
It would have been mine.
Super still. Everyone was super still. Like, how?
yeah,
was
and the fact that
not-
house of wax is just like abandoned, that also would have been your sign too. Like, here's your sign. Like, let's.
the one where the one wax figure was opening the curtain and closing it, like they thought that was a real person.
Yeah.
After a certain amount of time of walking past that, I'd have been like, wait a minute.
So Sam and her boyfriend try to get this fan belt, and really crazy things happen. And we'll get into some of the kills, but it devolves in a crazy way where we find out that Bo and his brother Vincent are previously conjoined twins, and their father got ran out of whatever practice he was in because he did experimental surgery. He separated them too.
This movie's wild. It just goes in all different directions.
Yeah, and we find
the intro is shocking.
In the intro, you think they try to make you think that that's Vincent, right? But then you realize that that's Bo the whole time, and he's been the psychotic one, right? And
I did not realize that until watching it this time. I swear to God. And I've seen this movie a million times.
Yeah, he was just he was something else. And to be honest, in the way that Vincent Price had every right to feel the way he did, let's be honest, Vincent was used by his family. He was used by his brother. Like, he was made to feel so inadequate. And that is a huge reason why he does all the...
It gives you Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes.
I was totally just thinking that. Like, you understand Leatherface.
Yeah,
like,
you do.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you have sympathy for him because you know people like this, they aren't necessarily born. They are turned into monsters. And you very much see that this is just somebody who wants to... You even get the part where Bo is telling Vincent, don't you see this is better that we use people? They make them more lifelike, like Mom would have wanted and stuff like that. He is the one you get very clear indication. He has the psychopathic delusions, and he has pushed his brother into it. Am I saying that we're going to give him the same, stuff as Vincent Price's character? No, because at the end of the day, he did participate in some pretty grisly murders. Yeah. At least Vincent, he kept it cute. Vincent Price's character, Jared, he kept it cute. Okay. He strangled those people. Yeah. He was very classy, very demure. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness.
You used demure.
Yes, I did.
She did.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. Maybe I'm old. No clue what that word means, and everyone's saying it.
Oh my God. Here we go.
It's just meaning keeping it very classy, keeping it very when you think of Vincent Price, you think of him as a very classy figure.
Quiet and polite. Usually describe a woman or girl.
Yes. He's a very classy, polite, well-spoken man. Okay. Vincent wasn't given a chance, at all. They were like, hey, you're the extra one, and we're just gonna push you in any direction. And all he really wanted to do was make his house of wax. Am I saying that makes up for the fact that he ends up going and murdering people in really disgusting ways? No. Can we talk about the way that in Vincent Price's version, Sue Ellen, he's going to get her in the wax, right? That was terrifying enough. The scene
Vincent really takes it there was Wade.
Oh, the scene with Wade where he gets the wax, and then they're trying to the Dalton, the friend, is trying to help him, and he peels the portion of his face off. I remember.
Why did you think that was going to help?
Yeah, that just kind of lived rent free in my mind. Also, too, when when Sam and her brother are running through the bottom, and they come across Dalton, and he tries to help him and he ends up snapping his head off accidentally because his head wasn't attached.
Dude, can we talk about the roadkill pit that Carly...
Whoa! But you know what's worse about that? I feel like there are places in Ohio where that happens.
I mean, there's places in Ohio where probably there are places like that, and there's people that probably really do eat roadkill.
I mean, they do. I have people that I know that are on like the list to go up pick up deers when they get hit by cars and stuff like that from the highway patrol to turn into like deer jerky and stuff.
These people exist.
I mean, it's not like that bad. They're
Can
just
you
like
know them personally, Cass? Because I'm gonna have to start asking you some questions.
I mean, it's a thing. It is a thing, because of the fact that if they don't, the way that those deer and stuff get disposed of aren't exactly the greatest ways. Like, we don't really think of things like that. So, I mean, it happens. But can we just talk about the most fear-inducing part of this? The fact that whole building is wax.
I was going to say, for sure.
The building itself was the horror movie.
The fact that it's burning down and they're on the top floor as it is burning to the ground. That is closer to burning material than I ever want to be in my whole entire life.
You sneeze flame wrong, everything's engulfed.
No, and the fact that they have to punch through part of the wax to get out of it, and like that had to hurt. Like they're like, we're gonna get you guys taken to the emergency. Bro, you should have got them to the emergency room the first thing. Like they probably have burns, and we don't want to know.
When Bo got her and like tied her down and super glued her lips.
Oh yeah, that
or the finger when he cuts her finger off.
Oh yeah, when he cuts her finger off.
Oh,
there were so much unnecessary things in this movie.
And you know what was unnecessarily like gross too? When she's in the theater and he starts shooting around her and he hits the people's heads and you can see where the wax part is still, but you could see their actual like brain and stuff like that as well. That to me was just like, oh my God, all of those people are fucking, the whole town is filled with fucking dead people. So in my calculations, between the museum and the whole town, those brothers took out like 150 people.
Yeah.
And they said that the cars that they found, they have been taking people out for decades. So you have to think that that's a lot of people. And in this day and age, how does a town not show up on a map?
Yeah, that's one thing I was thinking.
I mean, there is a uranium plant near me that does not show up on Google Maps. And you are not allowed to drive through it or government workers will come after you.
I mean, that's because they're keeping it a secret. I don't think they were
missing people.
Yeah, there were missing people in that area, and they never thought, you know what? There's a place that is hard to get to. We might want to check that. The fact that they never thought about that for like 10 plus years.
One thing I was
thought everybody left. Like, have we not learned?
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Mary. What were you saying?
Between the two movies, one thing I was like, the 50s, like it was easier to get away with missing person stuff and murders, and let's face it, they didn't have the things they have today, so it was believable that no one really noticed the missing people. But in 2005,
yeah. Yeah, and this is when we started seeing like the rise of like kidnappings and like prolific serial killers were getting caught up to for like the first time and stuff like that. We were kind of entering that like space of true crime where things were getting documented differently and stuff like that. So it's just
being reported.
Yes.
Well, that and DNA, forensic science,
game changer.
And I will be honest, the wax figures in here did not look as lifelike as the ones in the Vincent Price movie. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Not even close, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're not even close. But
you got to think the two artists are very different, though.
Yeah. And you see from the mom in the beginning, the mom's a little, she's a little affected.
Make a wax face for your son every day
Well,
as like a prosthetic.
Yes.
Like, why would you use like? And the dad was a doctor. Like, it's not like he didn't have access to like, good medical prosthetic things or whatever.
My question though too is, okay, we find out at the end of this that there's a third brother, and it was the guy that was like dumping stuff into the pits because he's watching them leave on the way out. Do we think that if they would have just not judged him in that car and he would have helped them get into town and stuff, do we think that all of them would have been alive versus that? I think that, because I think that brother knew what was going on from the beginning, didn't want any part of it, and I think that's the whole reason why, like, he dumped stuff in the pit and everything like that, because he's just that outlier, because they made it very much seem like it was the two brothers that really gravitated towards things. I think that third brother, if they had just not like given him a hard time, I think he would have potentially tried to save them. But for the fact that
he had more of a conscience.
Yeah, he very much obviously did, because, he was the one that was like trying, like, because they have that whole thing where like the road is blocked and everything like that. You kind of get, in my opinion, when I'm watching that, I kind of get the idea that he's the one that did that, right? That he's the one that like prevented, because he says, I'm going to have to switch my truck into 4x4, like into a different mode and stuff like that. So you kind of get that he's the reason why, because remember that big pit is there too with like the animals and stuff like that. Not a lot of people would come into an area that smells like that and stuff like that. Like, I'm surprised that they stayed in there with it smelling like that.
Smell it through the TV.
Yeah. So you get the impression that he kind of did a lot of these things to make them go the different way, because you could kind of tell that there were not a lot that these were the first people that had been around in a long time. Like, that he's like, they've redirected people and stuff like that. But this was the first time that this really was like, I think that brother is the one that has the conscience, and that's why we don't know about him till the end of the movie, because Vincent was the one that was conjoined, right? He's the one that could very easily be manipulated. Bo was the violent one. We saw that he was psychotic from the beginning. So he played on his brother. I think the third brother was like, you guys are on your own here.
It makes sense though why they were so messed up.
Oh, it
really does.
Definitely toxic home environment for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a lot of sympathy for Vincent. I even think that they do towards the end too. They're like, you hear her, like reason with him, like, hey, you got used. Like, your brother is using you this way. Like, let's do this. She's a fucking badass for the way that she just comes. She gets that knife out of her brother and just, that was like a whole double team.
You don't underestimate twins.
No.
And whether they're good or bad.
And the whole time,
or any siblings, really.
Yeah. Because he knew when he got there that something was going on. Even before, like, when he cut her finger off, Bo did, and he's trying to keep it to where he's quiet and stuff like that. He knew, like, as soon as this guy was acting weird, he's probably got my sister. Like, there was something clicking there that he just knew. He was like, this is weird. I got to go find her. And, like, really helped out. And you kind of find out that he wasn't the evil one. Like, the trouble that he got into, he was taking the rap for his friend. And he just
kind of how it is.
Yeah. And he kind of, you even hear it like, thank you for doing that. And he's like, I would much rather I already am in trouble. I would much rather take that rap than you have to do that.
Yeah, you end up not liking him. Like, your impression was wrong, you feel.
Yeah. Yeah, and this movie is just nasty in certain levels, right?
Wade even survived being burned alive by wax. Like, being burned alive is like one of the most.
Dude, I burned my finger, and I'm a baby.
I was about to say, remember the roast beef?
Her finger last week, and we had to reschedule.
We actually did. This is
We
a
did.
true story. I literally I had a microwave tray of roast beef. I put it in and I pulled it out because I was like, we're gonna have an easy dinner tonight. I got like the pre-made mashed potatoes and stuff. I opened and I had literally just said something to my child because he had opened up popcorn the other day and had got a little like burn there because of the steam. And I'm like, watch out. So I'm not watching and I open it and the steam just hits my finger right here. And it was like all red and puffy. And I'm like, Kylie had to actually Google a bunch of stuff while we're on the phone talking about it. And I literally
a ride or die.
Yeah,
I'm
is.
always good for like the home remedy type stuff.
Yeah, as we're talking, she's telling me about coconut oil, and I'm like putting it on my like finger, and I'm like, okay, let's see if this works. The next day, I was like, okay, I think I'm able to actually type with this finger now. It'll be okay. But yeah, no, like that's painful. That was painful just with that. You see the gauge right on there on how high the temperature is getting for that. At that point, take me out, bruh. Like at least Vincent Price was gonna like, he injected her with something,
Yeah.
and she would have died instantly, right? Like she would have went away. It doesn't make it any better, but still, he was at least considerate.
It wasn't like that.
He was
coolness.
torture.
Yeah, he was
torturing.
Yeah, and this one very much is like it's just that whole entire place being made of wax. I'm sorry.
You're still not okay.
I'm not okay.
Have you guys, Jamie? Have you ever been to a wax museum?
Can't say I have. In Niagara Falls, I was considering going to one like a bunch of different celebrities where they had famous movie icons, but I never really got around to it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I've seen places like that, but I never actually set foot in there. But I always wanted to just see what it was like.
I've been to one place. They had, so it's in Michigan. It's Frankenmuth, Michigan. It's a big German town that has like it, but basically one of the big draws for it is there is a Christmas store called Bronner's that's like 12 football fields long, filled with Christmas ornaments and different things like that.
We need a Halloween one.
They actually have some really cool stuff that you could make like Creepmas with. One of these days I'm going to get out and like do one of those where I could be like, this is where you're going to get Creepmas stuff. But they have like a Christmas, at least at the time that I went, they had like a museum and they had certain like wax figures there to like represent things. And I did not like being left in the room like that. My parents, like, I'm looking at the displays and I thought my parents were behind me. And all of a sudden I got left in that room alone. And there's just like big displays of like Santa, Mary, and Jesus and like a big nativity scene and stuff. Because again, we're talking Germantown. So like we got like big Lutheran energy.
Did they have a wax Krampus?
I was going to say, did Krampus get you at any point?
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
They're German?
And listen, they didn't have it, which honestly slightly like disrespectful to our culture, right? Because Krampus is obviously a part of that. Like, if I had to go through that experience at 5, being told by my Omi that somebody is gonna come and get me, and I'm like, what do you mean there's anti-Santa Claus? And I have to live with that experience. Everyone else does too. So, but if there's Krampus there, I at least would have felt a little bit like okay, right? Because that oddly is comforting to me.
You know, Julian is 5, and my mom told me we do have German in us. I may tell him about Krampus if you don't get his crap together.
Don't do my nephew like that. Please don't. Please don't.
We'll go to school.
I need you after the bus.
Yeah. He's we're gonna listen. No, after the whole we had to tell him that we were friends with Michael Myers, so he wouldn't be afraid of Michael Myers. I don't know if I could tell. I don't have a picture of Krampus yet. Okay, I can't spin that story yet. So if you're going to do that, we at least need to like lay the work. We need to be around a Krampus. We need to be around these characters so we can at least like be like, okay, but we know them, so you're fine.
I'll kidding aside, if you ever do go to Germany or Austria, there's a parade that they have around I think it's Chris Kindelmark or something, where there's a parade there that you actually see Krampus in the parade.
There's a parade of Krampuses in Germany.
That's so cool. I would love to see that.
I'm 4th, 5th generation removed. Like my grandparents, my grandfather, his parents are the ones that came over from Germany to Middle Bass. So we, instead of coming to Ellis Island, they emigrated to Middle Bass, which is in the middle of Lake Erie, settled there. Then when everything happened with the economy, with the stock market crash and stuff like that, they came to Sandusky. They started commercial fishermen. Like they lived off the boats and everything like that. That's a huge thing. So, but that is a very real thing.
I have been to a wax museum.
Oh,
I have one. It used to be by Knott's Berry Farm. Now it's turned out. Now it's a Starbucks. But we did have the wax museum, and I remember going with my dad when I was younger. We had seen this movie, and my dad going, "Do you think those are people?" That was my father. He loved horror, so and I went. That's all I remember from it.
No, the scariest thing to me was,
but they looked real. They did.
They do at different times, because I will tell you, since then, I have had an experience. We have like the flea market here around us. It's called Jamie's Flea Market. They have like a big toy store. They have a lot of the horror figures. So like the dummies of like Reagan and stuff like that. Like everything's packed. So like you turn the corner and bam, you're face to face with like a glass case that has Reagan in it that's like staring you down. You turn the corner and there's fucking Michael Myers just like 2 feet away from you, just chilling out. Like there's just too much
stuff. I don't need that negativity in my life. You already took me to Jungle Gyms.
That's another place that would be like that. Jamie, for reference, Kylie and I, when we were together for GhoulieCon, there is a grocery store in Ohio that is basically like if somebody said, "Hey, I'm going to make a grocery store, but on drugs. Let's do this." And he just added like a bunch of like animatronics. It's got like there's like a boat in the middle of the store as a display. There's like, people think that I'm legitimately joking. Kylie can back me up now. There is a display at the end of this pop aisle that is Tony the Tiger on a rocking horse talking to Geppetto and Pinocchio to the Raisin Bran sun to the Keebler elf tree.
What? That was a lot to take in.
You didn't see the content, Mary.
Yeah. We took a video of it because I literally was like, okay. Because Braden, I didn't realize that it talked at first, right? Braden hits the button when we went the first time, and it started talking. And the soul left my body. So I at least prepared Kylie. I said, "Kylie, we're going down this aisle. I'm showing you this so people know that this is real." And so I prepared Kylie. I said, "Kylie, I'm going to prepare you. This is going to move." So Braden hit the button.
Dude, I was shocked by the bathroom that was like a porta potty.
Yeah,
like you open it and then you walk. It's a bunch of bathrooms, like a public restroom. But it felt like I was jumping into like another like dimension or something. Like I was like in Doctor Sleep or something.
It has legitimately a movie theater inside of there. It has a little movie theater that plays the Jungle Gym story on how he built this. But like they're on aisles and different things. There is like,
do people like shop here regular? Like, is that someone's grocery store?
Yes. They have stuff from like every continent in the world.
Yeah, they have like they have a bunch of specialty stuff. Like there is a clip of Kylie, which I will have to we'll have to repost, where Kylie literally goes up to the fish section. There's a bunch of exotic fish, and there's literally like a baby shark. And she goes up to it and she's like, "You're one of Bruce's little badass kids, aren't you?" Like literally.
Well, the picture that got me was the fish are literally in a boat in the store.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Dude, I know. I was like, Cass, are those real? Like people buy those ugly types of fish you see at the bottom of the ocean?
They're like deep sea.
I don't know how I feel about it being out in the open. I'm not
I mean, I'm sure they change it. I mean, they'd have
Don't
to.
matter.
I don't know.
Nobody.
I'll send you a YouTube video, Jamie, so you could see like the inside of it, because it's literally like it is a grocery store on crack. I've been there 6 times, and like we went back in the liquor section this time because I was trying to find this bourbon for my grandfather. This liquor section is literally the size of a grocery store, and I had not been back there, and this was my 6th time being at that location. And so I still don't think that there are parts of it that I have made it through. Yeah.
Okay, I pretty much want to go there now just to see what's going on.
Oh, listen.
I mean, I've had crazy stories with going into stores, like seeing weird places. But
yeah, and listen, you're ever in Ohio, we're gonna take you there. It's gonna be we're gonna field trip.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy place. But yeah, no, there was no Krampus, but there are big displays of like Santa and stuff like that. And those were my experience with wax figures. And I was like, yeah, no.
Jamie, I have a question. What is your feelings on the comparison between the 2 movies?
Come again?
What's your feelings like on the comparison, like the classic one to the current one? I know they're very different, but I'd love to get like your take as an actor, as a creature actor, on the differences and everything.
Great question.
For me, I find that most times you just cannot beat a classic. However, whenever I watch most remakes of any movie, I always enjoy seeing their version, their take of it. But I always still have that connection to the original because it's the first one of them that I've seen. For me, it's usually you just can't beat the classic. Now, I usually have nothing against remakes. Actually, I hardly have anything against remakes. Because I always like seeing their spin on things. But I always like seeing the original, how the first one was made. With any movie for that matter.
I agree, yeah.
I like the fact, though, that they made these different because I think a lot of times with remakes, we get like a shot for shot or something that's almost eerily similar. And I just don't like that. Like, I like the fact that if you're going to take it, let's do a different direction with it. Let's try to connect it in some certain way, but let's go in a different field with this. And I think they did.
Like when people cover songs, I don't want to hear the same song.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like when, there are umpteenth billion versions of Cry Little Sister from Lost Boys, but like there are very few that I actually like. Like it's Vampires Anywhere has one out that I think is like a very like scratchy, like dark romance kind of version of it. And then you have the original. The original is obviously the best because like when G-Talk Mac made that song, he hadn't seen any of the Lost Boys. They literally gave him a description and he's like, okay, I got this. And then went on and made a song that was absolutely perfect in that scene of the movie. And immediately when you hear that song and it hits your brain, you think about that scene. I don't think there are a lot of people that can do that song, but if you're going to do it, take it in a different direction. It's kind of like, Jolene with Dolly Parton or, I Will Always Love You. Obviously, Dolly Parton's the original. There are great versions of those songs, though, that other people have done, and it's because they've went in the other direction. So I think that that's where we're getting at is, it's kind of like the new movie Twisters. Like, Twister is obviously a beloved movie, but eventually they were going to have to remake it because weather has changed since then. So they did, I think, what was the best job was saying, okay, here are some elements that connect it to the original movie, but we're doing a completely different movie. It's still in that realm, still building on the original idea.
You're still going to have that nostalgia, but you're adding the current twist.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys know my feelings about that. That song by Lainey Wilson that she did for that movie, when it hits in that movie, I literally start fucking bawling. And this is the same person that literally has watched scenes in horror movies and been like, you know what? That's really fucking cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. Like, here's the thing. With horror movies, I like the kills and stuff because to me, because I know it's fake.
Right.
Like true crime and stuff, sometimes I can't handle it. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I need a breather. But with horror movies, It's like, oh, that was really cool. Oh, I like how they made that look realistic. Oh, it's interesting. I do that a lot. And that's Jamie, I have a question. When you watch horror movies now as, a horror actor, do you find yourself looking at things differently than you did before you got into that?
A little bit. I guess it's probably just because where I'm in the business now and where I'm older and where I've seen more, probably.
Yeah, I've always been very
nothing,
curious about that.
I'm not going to lie to you. Almost nothing really scares me. I usually tell people the scariest thing I ever see is basically what I see when I look in the mirror first thing in the morning. Because when it comes to,
I get it.
You're looking at a guy who gives himself like 4 or 5 needles a day and used to prick his finger on a regular basis. Like, oh look, blood. Okay, sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
someone take out shot that. Okay, yeah, never mind. It's
well, and
it's like I enjoy it. It's just nothing really terrifies me that much. Actually, when I was 8 years old, one of the biggest F me moments was when I was trick or treating, and so I just go up. It's like this. It's almost like something out of a Tim Burton movie, or if you made the Addams Family a lot darker. So imagine pale white steps and fencing. Imagine like it's almost like Morticia turning evil, rocking back and forth. It's like deep, heavy breathing. Like you almost want to look at it and make sure she's okay. And I'm 8 years old doing like just looking. So I'm backing away at the door. I didn't ring the doorbell or knock, but part of me must have hit the door because I don't feel the door anymore. All of a sudden, I just feel a big hand on my shoulder come down. I'm 8 years old. It's like I'm looking right up in the air, and if that guy either just went or you rang, I would have run from here probably to Australia or something like that. Like I'm 8 years old trick or treating.
Yeah.
I'm worried that Morticia's going to attack me, but at the same time, it's basically lurch. It's like I'm saying I don't need candy anymore. I'm just going to go. That's one of the biggest F me moments of my life. That I was one.
I don't
like almost nothing scares me.
Yeah.
But that was one of the ones where I was just okay. Very few things in life have freaked me out. That's one.
I feel like you, just from knowing you have a very good gauge of horror as well. Like even before this, like I feel like we bonded a lot about talking about like AMC Fear Fest and how that kind of, for you and I both, that kind of opened up an avenue for horror for us. I know
AMC Fear Fest is like literally why I'm such a big horror fan and how I got to watch everything.
Oh yeah, as soon as I can, I always go like, because with my TV, I was trying to go like 11 days in advance. It's like the bare minimum. It gives you 12 if you're lucky. So I was trying to record the movies as soon as I come on, so I don't forget.
Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%. So thank you so much for coming on, Jamie. What are you looking forward to? Is there any projects that you have coming out that you want to talk about? Or is there anything cool that you're excited for with spooky season coming around the corner?
I can't comment at this time, really, but I can honestly say I'm really looking forward to seeing what season 3 from is like.
Oh.
Because I'm glad, because whenever you work on it, whenever you see a show you enjoy, or if you've been a part of a show and you did it and you love it, whether you're in it or not, you always want to see how it goes.
Yeah. And I'm really excited too, because spoiler alert, and if you don't want to hear this, please skip forward and probably like a minute and a half and you'll be okay. But your character this past season was a big reason why things devolved, because your character gets killed and he
changes the whole game.
He changes the whole game. So that's kind of why I'm going to be honest. I'm a little scared. I'm a little bit in the corner. Like, okay, I'm already a little freaked out by the trailer for this new season. I'm a little like in the corner, like, okay, are we going to be okay? Are we going to be okay? Are we going to be okay?
I don't think anything will ever be okay at this place.
I don't think so either.
Why it's there? What's going on?
I don't think so either. And I think relatively we've gotten off pretty scot-free with some of the original characters like staying. I think this season's about to be like, bam. So I'm right there with you. But if you haven't watched From, please go watch it. It is currently on MGM Plus. It is coming back for the fall season, which is absolutely perfect because that is the perfect atmospheric vibes as well. Jamie, we recently started a new segment where we talk about our favorite things in horror for the week. So, Kylie, Mary, you want to start it off, or you want me to start it off?
I will.
Go ahead.
I am super excited about Terror Threads coming out with the Hell House LLC like merch line. Like I've been searching for like a year, and I finally found some shirts on Etsy. But Terror Threads is actually in association with Terror Films, who like has done all the Hell House series, and is finally like giving us some merch, man. I am so excited. I'm a huge fan of the Hell House LLC movies. If you haven't already noticed,
and those might make an appearance. One of those might make appearance this month. Who knows?
We don't know.
We're not going to comment any further. But wink, wink. But
I'm also dying for like more another trailer of this 5th one coming out. Hell House.
Well, we're
LLC
not.
Window.
I was about to say we're not going to get news about it until the beginning of the year, probably. Which is
what?
Sad.
It's really nice to come out when the baby's born.
Then you could just have the baby, watch Hell House together, bonding moment. We're all about building families.
Well, the trailer. I imagine it probably won't come out until like October-ish of 2025.
I'm wondering if this is going to be the last one, but I guess we'll find out. Who knows? In this world of Hell House, Jamie, have you ever seen Hell House?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay.
You gotta go watch them.
It is a found footage film, but it is fantastic. It is on different.
Wonderfully.
It's on Tubi, which I believe is actually on. Like I think Tubi.
Well, yes, all of them are on Tubi, and all of them are also on AMC Plus or Shudder.
Yeah,
you have that combo.
And I think Tubi is in Canada. Like you can download it in Canada. I'm not 100% about that. I do know that I've had other people that I know that's in Canada and they've been able to watch things through Tubi. I think I have it. I can't confirm that, but it is.
Yes. Tubi has added more than 200 movies to its service in Canada.
Okay.
Nice.
So
yeah,
NBC,
Sony Pictures, and Warner Brothers.
The reason we like Tubi is actually free. So there's a lot of horror movies that's on Tubi, but Hell House is a found footage film. It's a haunted house film, and it's about these people that decide to go in and do a haunted house in this very haunted hotel. And
the location that they do it at, I mean, in the movie it's called the Abaddon Hotel, but in real life there is an actual place. It's called the Waldorf Estates, and it's in Pennsylvania, and it really is haunted, like Conjuring House type hauntedness. There's like a lot. I just recently found out that there's a lot of the history from the Waldorf House has been incorporated into the Hell House series.
Yeah.
Definitely different things, but a lot alike. So but that just kind of adds a more terrifying element to it.
But it's very much got like it does a really good job at blending classic horror with new horror, because a lot of it is classic spooks and very like not like subtlety with it, but also things that kind of come out of nowhere and hit you in the face. So it is a very don't trust clowns in this movie.
Yeah, don't trust clowns.
No, don't trust clowns. Don't go. Mary, do you want to go next?
Yes. So, I got to hit it with the books. So, big horror reader. I'm actually listening to an audiobook by an author that I discovered on Instagram because I liked his content. And I'm going to see if I can. It's called Stokebridge. Oh, you can't really tell. It's called Stokebridge by Eric with the C Woods. Mm-hmm. And it's a story about a town where a guy killed a bunch of people and the government covered it up. But now this paranormal team is going in because somebody knows about the town, and they're trying to figure things out because ghosts and stuff are coming up. I can't put it down. I'm so enthralled. You hit me with a ghost town, secrets, anything
government
like
cover-ups. That sounds right up my alley, Mary.
It's really good. But then I also kind of want to I have a bone to pick with Spotify right now. I love Spotify for our podcast. Don't get me wrong. But I got the premium because you get audiobooks, right? Well, I wasn't aware you only get so many hours. So
Really?
I was listening to Home is Where the Bodies Are by Jennifer Rose. And I'm at the part where you're going to... So basically the storyline's not ruining it, is that this kid's mother passes away. Father took off years ago, and they're going through her stuff, to sort it. Find a videotape. Turns out the parents, they covered up a murder. So now they're trying to figure things out. I'm at the part where they're about to explain it, and it's like, oh, you can have more time in 12 days. So Spotify, we need to change that because I'm upset and I'm going crazy.
Mary basically is saying we need to talk. We need to work this out on the remix.
Because my husband's so funny. I was listening at 2 a.m. Right? I was just so enthralled, and then I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
And that your poor husband was like, "Girl, you need to go to sleep." Like,
it was a Saturday, so
yeah.
But yes, I highly recommend that book. By the way, it's Home is Where the Bodies Are by Jennifer Rose, and we'll link it. And then, but the other one is Stoke Bridge by Eric Woods.
That sounds delightful. I'm gonna ask Jamie his in a minute if he's got one, like something that's brewing on his mind. But for me, I'm still recovering from Long Legs. I'm gonna be honest. I watched Long Legs on. I said I was gonna watch it on Friday after we recorded Anaconda. If you haven't listened to that episode, listen to it. We released some demons on that episode. I feel like because we all were like super tired the next day, but I didn't. In fact, I watched it Saturday night, and the gore I could handle. Right. There was just a deep unsettling in that movie that just stays in your chest. And if you're not one that doesn't like a deeply psychological movie and something that plays with different themes of like religion and the devil and stuff like that, and serial killers and stuff, like, you're not going to like this movie. But for me, I'm a huge fan of Silence of the Lambs. Like, for me,
Same.
I've never looked at Anthony.
Look at my shirt, Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I've never looked at Anthony Hopkins the same way ever again since he became that character. Like, we just, same way with Mad Michelson. I believe him every single time that he is a villain because of the fact of the Hannibal series, because he's incredible at it. I just believe him fully because, like, I just never looked at. I told Mary and Kylie both, I think I'm going to have to watch Willy's Wonderland with Nick Cage in it at least 5 times to cleanse the memory of seeing him in Long Legs, because I was
the pale. It's just pale. I don't. I couldn't. Like, I heard everybody say they couldn't handle it. Like, they're like, I can't see Nicolas Cage the same. I'm like, whatever. I've seen lots of horror movies. They ain't wrong.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, Jamie, Long Legs is basically kind of it's a serial killer movie. It's about this woman who we don't know, but for certain reasons, she's able to kind of figure things out with different cases and stuff, like psychically. We just don't know, like, a lot of her, and we kind of find out more of it, but she gets assigned to this case that goes back like 30 years of all these people getting killed, and she connects with it, and we kind of find out why. But if you're a big classic horror fan, which I know you are, it's done by Oswald Perkins, who is actually Anthony Perkins' son, who played Norman Bates in Psycho. And it's his son that directed and wrote this movie. And it is absolutely, it's like the new age Hitchcock kind of vibes.
Very much
so.
That thing gets released on TV, I'm watching it. So.
Oh, it's
and it's interesting about the classics because I always like see, because even with the first House of Wax, I looked to see what other actors were in this. Carolyn Jones, I had no idea. Like, geez, this is the same woman that 11 years beforehand. This is Morticia I'm looking at here.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
And the Sargents, Jim Shane, a few decades later, he's the old version of Tom Hanks' character in Green Mile. I did not know that. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
because that's another thing I like about classic movies too, like how a bunch of actors, how they were before they became famous. And another thing about Vincent Price, I was watching The Raven, the 1963 version.
Love The Raven.
He's the only actor I've heard refer to Jack Nicholson as a young man. Enough said. Because in The Raven, it's got a young Jack Nicholson because it's got him, Peter Lorre, Jack Nicholson, Boris Karloff, Vincent Price and Peter Lorre are talking. Jack Nicholson plays Peter Lorre's son. And I forget how the line went, but basically he says to Peter Lorre, "Well, your son seems to be a fine young man." I'm just like, oh my God.
That's right. Jack Nicholson wasn't born old.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, he wasn't born
be
old.
young, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Because when I look back last Halloween, last October, it's like, wow, in his 20s, Jack Nicholson actually did a few supernatural or horror movies.
That's like Morgan Freeman. Like, I could never picture him young.
For Jack Nicholson, I looked. He did Little Shop of Horrors, The Raven. There was one
Mhm.
back in the 60s. I forget. It's something about some supernatural female being. I forget the name. But I almost thought,
You know, it's the same way. I forget Robert De Niro being like younger Robert De Niro, but one of the films that I love that he's in is Cape Fear, and I get reminded.
I love that movie. That and the original one.
Yes,
Now,
and
so
that's
there's an example where they did their own, where the 1991 version did its own take, but it did it well.
exactly.
Like Scorsese and De Niro, Nick Nolte. It's like, yes, they made a remake, but they did it their own way. Basically, hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. No, I think that that's great, and I'm glad that you brought that up, talking about like this, because that's a good way to like wrap up this week in horror. Is definitely go check out the older versions of a lot of these films, because take for instance like Dark Castle. When we're talking about 13 Ghosts, we're talking about Ghost Ship, we're talking about a Return, House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price. A lot of those older versions are just as good as the new versions. They're different because they had to go about horror in a different way, but they are fantastic. So a lot of them have hit streaming in the last couple of years, especially with the pandemic. And I think Tubi is a great example of that, because Tubi gets a lot of the older ones.
I watch a lot of them on there because
and
I don't know if Turner Classic Movies, is that still a channel?
Oh, yeah.
Growing
That's
up.
actually where I first saw House of Wax.
Yeah, it still
We're
is.
recording
all
all
the
these
time.
ones, and that's how I get to know actors like Vincent Price, Boris Karloff, Christopher Lee. I just, every Halloween or every time I just see it on TV, I end up trying to record it in case I fall asleep during the night or I can't watch it in time. Because I always try and make the time to see it at some point.
Yeah.
So I love AMC, I love TCM.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think a lot of the companies that own the rights to those films, some of the stuff has become public domain, so that's why like Tubi has to get a lot of them, is because some of the subject matter has become like public domain, and so they've had to give that. So that's like when you see a lot of the versions of Dracula for free, that is because a lot of the older versions they have to, because Dracula is public domain.
Well, also how they're making these horror movies like the Winnie the Pooh and that stuff. I never knew about public domain. I never knew that your copyright could be up.
Okay, I would say for a lot of those movies, horrible. However, because
You gotta appreciate them though.
But I do, and I will say, Sydney Horror Chronicles and Slasher Talk both did a thing about the second Winnie the Pooh one. So I like undercover went in and watched both of them, because I think at one time both of them were streaming on
I didn't know there was another one.
They are on Peacock.
Yeah, and so I watched both of them, and the first one was second one was a little bit better, but still, this was after Bermuda Tentacles, and it's better than Bermuda Tentacles. Like, honestly, like it made sense. It made a little bit more sense after being gauged against that. So I could see certain ones like that. Like, let's be honest, the fairy tale ones, of course, there are going to be like horror versions because they were horror properties to begin with. The original stories from like the Grimm brothers are terrifying. Like the actual German fairy tales,
They're not supposed to be fluffy and fun. They're supposed to scare children.
I know. I've seen some of those. I've read some of the origins. It's just well, I don't want to say disturbing, but it would certainly freak out any kid for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch the Disney versions of it when you're like starting, I don't know, 5, 6 years old, maybe even younger. Then when you get older, like say around, well, even 18 or maybe our age or something, you read it, it's like, oh my God, this is the actual origin of this?
Yeah, it's
like the Little
Mermaid. This is not fit for children.
Like
the
how
Little Mermaid. She kills herself because she can't become a human. That's the story.
Or the story of Hercules. Like they make it light and fluffy, but Hercules, like he gets blinded by like his stepmother and kills his own children. Like, and then they talk about that. They do have a mini series that's got Paul Tefler in it. That's more like the original story, which is fantastic. But a lot of that is like a lot of those Greek mythology, like the ones that they have like light, fluffy movies about. Those
Greek mythology is screwed up. Let's be honest.
Well, and like even talking vampire myth, the reason Greek mythology is a big part of vampirism because of the fact of even in going back to like Odysseus and his voyage to the underworld, he makes a blood offering to the spirits in the underworld to basically satiate them so he could get his way back. And so that kind of is early drawings of, or even like the Strigoi. They're technically ghouls in Romanian that haunt the Romanian forest that live off of blood and creatures. That's what led to vampirism and Dracula and Vlad the Impaler. So those are dark stories to begin with. It's just they then turned into these fluffier versions, but they were always dark, deep, kind of disgusting stories, let's be honest. So I think I need to have reverence for it. I will say Winnie the Pooh was not one that I had on my bingo card. However, I will say again, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I've seen worse. Definitely a lot better than Bermuda Tentacles. So check it out. We're all trauma. Like, no, I never thought that was going to happen on this channel. So please don't. Right. Like, as much as we're hyping this up now, people are probably going to go watch it. Please don't come back and be like, I need therapy after. Because I'm warning you now. Like, just listen to our episode. Like, we did the work. We have to go through the therapy now. But that is one sci-fi movie that I cannot get behind. And I watched a lot of sci-fi movies in my day, okay? A lot of bad ones that I found.
There's a lot of good ones, but there's a lot of bad ones.
Even those have redeeming qualities. I tried really hard to find a redeeming quality with Bermuda Tentacles, and I could not. Okay, that's a deep well to go into. So, but thank you so much, Jamie, for coming on. If you guys have not catched up with Jamie on From, please go watch it. It is currently streaming on MGM Plus, and the new season is coming out, so it's the perfect time. You can also listen to our 2 episodes prior where Jamie comes on and talks about his experience being Mr. Smiley, but also comes on and talks about Fright Night, which is one of my favorite movies. And
another classic versus how the remake is. So.
Yes, and we'll definitely talk after this is done. But thank you so much for coming on. So we appreciate it.
Thank you all for having me.
We love having you on. And
this was a blast.
Yeah, obviously you'll be back on again. Like, we love you. So you'll always be coming back on.
Nice.
Yeah, we have stickers for that. That's why there literally is a sticker that says one of us. We'll have to send you some stickers. So, but for now, this is me, Cassandra, and Cassandra and
Kylie
and
Mary.
And thank you, Jamie, for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
And this has been the Horrorcraft Podcast, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye, and stay spooky.
Bye.